Whenever you're ready. All right, let's begin. So let's call the Monday, January 29th, Orono Town Council's committee meeting to order. Roll call shows that Councilors Powers, Marks, Laraway, Berthasol, and myself, Councilor Wingard, are present in chambers. We should be joined shortly by Councilors Kenny and Demerit. We have one item of discussion tonight, and that is regarding the town manager search with our guest Lisa Barker of SGR. And Councilor Marks will lead that section.
Thank you. So we have a lot of subcategories. Hey, Leo, just in time.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Nice to meet you in
You
person.
too.
So we have a lot of subcategories to these sections.
Can we reconsider that attendance question you just dealt with?
So we can change the record to show that all councilors are in attendance.
Thank you.
Hello.
So the first item is really just talking about the schedule of what we need to do next. And what meetings are coming up and what we need to accomplish at those meetings. So.
Sorry, I was listening.
Can't show up late and disrupt.
That's pretty strange, Dan. Okay.
I was on the Facebook thing going, sorry.
So I did attach a document with probably way more colors than the rest of you wanted to see, but I've been trying to be sure for myself that I could track what was something that the search advisory committee would potentially participate in versus what was just for council. Most important, I think, is that at our meeting next Wednesday, the 7th, we need to finalize, and Melissa can correct me if I'm missing something, the brochure, the job description, and the applications for sure by the 7th to be on this possible timeline you and I have talked about.
Yeah, so I would say the only thing is we'll need the job, they'll have to have the job description before they can really finish the brochure.
Yeah.
So,
We should do that too.
yes, so we should, y'all should do the job description tonight, and then that way hopefully I can have the brochure to you
Great.
next week in time for you
You're
to take a
saying
look.
thought they could get it to us by Monday.
Yes,
So-
yeah, they usually need a full week, but today's Monday, so if I can get the job description to them tomorrow, then they should be able to make that work. Great.
And then, Leo and I had a proposal. We had talked about when council would go into executive session to choose the advisory search committee. And we had been talking as a council about perhaps trying to do that also next week. Leo and I wanted to suggest that we do that on the 21st, which will be our next Wednesday meeting. For two reasons. One, because we want to be sure we have enough time if there's significant amounts of things involving the brochure, the ads, or any of that, that we really focus in and get it done. And also because we wanted to be sure staff had enough time to respond back. We know Cornell was about to message out staff this week, sometime early in the week. Has it already happened or is it?
No,
it will happen?
I have one drafted, but I just had a question about let us know by, I have in there February 14th. It's a week before.
Yeah,
And I was gonna ask, include in the email why you would like to serve on the committee and the perspective you would bring
that's
to
perfect.
save you a
Yeah.
step. So if you have that by the 14th, that'd be all right.
Yeah, that'll be fine. I have a follow-up email that asks some scheduling questions, but that'll be fine. So does the rest of council, so that search advisory committee, as you can see when you scroll down through here, wouldn't have to actually meet at all until the week of March 4th, just for an organizational meeting to review process and responsibilities and commitments and sign non-disclosure agreements. And even if we're on schedule and we do what we're supposed to do with the brochure, there's no chance we would be in a briefing meeting for semifinalists before the week of March 18th.
Yes,
Correct, Melissa?
that's correct.
So I think that if we were to choose this committee on the 21st, that gives us plenty of time. I have an email drafted, which you all saw, which would go out by, I think I can get it out by Wednesday to everyone who has already volunteered. So they're updated on where we're at in the process. They would be told that on the 21st, the committee will be chosen. So people wouldn't be hanging in limbo wondering what was happening. Do folks feel comfortable with that as a schedule? That's good. Okay. And on this schedule, Alyssa, you and I might have some questions to talk about when we get information about interview questions so that we can look at those and choose and how early we can get that?
Yeah, so we'll, once we approve the brochure, we launch the search, then I'll send you guys the timeline. So we can actually nail down the exact meeting dates and times. And then I'll also send the interview questions. And it is an exhaustive bank, which the good part of that is you can pull different questions for different committees or, et cetera. So utilize it that way. But yeah, I'll go ahead and send it then. And you can begin to kind of dive through it. If you have questions, I can answer those, but absolutely, that'll come at the same time as the timeline.
So I think it would be possible then, when we have the first meeting with the advisory committee, if we're wanting their input on on questions going out to the semifinalists, we could get their input at that same meeting and not have to schedule another meeting for them. That sounds cool. I'm trying to keep their number of meetings to a minimum, and I don't think, just for their own scheduling sake, and I don't think the intro meeting will be very long. Right, so I think we will have time potentially. Lisa, is there any problem, or Cornell, with us also looking at those questions via email, as long as there's no back and forth about them and they're just like everyone's sending their feedback to one point person by email? That would be fine.
Yes.
Great. I don't have any more particular timeline questions. Do any of the rest of you have timeline questions?
No, this, I like this color coded, lays it all out document. This is really helpful. Thank you for.
And you did see the title, which
Getting
says very
organized.
clearly not committed to by SGR at this time. They will not commit till we do our part, which is fair because
Totally
they
fair.
can't say what they'll do until we get our part done on the brochure and the.
That's,
process.
yeah.
Okay. Great. So I think that was item A, and perhaps also all of B. Am I missing anything on item B? I guess I did want to ask, we had talked as a council about, when I put out the doodle poll, which will go in the email this middle of this week, about possible times advisory search committee people are available. We had talked about Tuesday and Wednesday as times to ask about. I think council said between 4 and 7, but I think I'm just going to extend that to be 3:30 to 8, just so we see the full range.
Sure.
And I think I'll probably put Thursday in as well, which is our only other possible day. Just to get, I don't want to have to go back. I'd rather have
Yeah.
everybody's data up front. So I know we have a preference for hoping to make Tuesday or Wednesday work, but that's comfortable for folks. Okay. Then item C is about blind candidate review. And this I'm really going to turn over to Alyssa. I heard about this from Kennebunk, who worked with SGR. It's an equity issue in hiring sometimes, judgments people make based on gender, based on race, or any other characteristics that one can visually see or infer from a name. And so there are processes we could choose to use which attempt to counterbalance that. I'll turn it over.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can, when we present candidates at the initial applicant review meeting, not have names. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so they would just be numbered. Okay, and that way you are not looking at names, you're looking at numbers instead. But their background experience is all going to be there. So none of that would be left off. Okay, so that would be the first kind of point where we could do that. And then if you wanted to take it a step further after semifinalists are selected, and semifinalist review information is presented for your review, once again, we can do the same and have them numbered. We do a virtual recorded interview. So generally that is, you're looking at them, with the interview they've recorded, it's 3 to 4 questions. And that's part of the information you review independently before we all meet to select finalists. If you wanted to utilize that part in the same way, then it would just be audio. You would not have the visual of them at that point. So those are kind of the options. Kennebunk didn't do all of that. I think they did the candidate numbers and they had the videos they could see, but it's up to you.
So I think this is an open council discussion
Yeah.
at this point about both of those levels, whether we would not have names visible
Mhm.
really, and I'm assuming not pronouns either on references.
Correct. They would be numbered.
Right.
Mhm.
And then the second question later in the process is, once there are recorded interviews, would we watch them on video or would we only have audio?
Yeah.
For those. So I'll open that.
I think I'd be in favor of doing it in the first part and then for the recorded videos, actually seeing the videos and hearing them.
Yeah.
There's some,
agree with you. I like body language. I wish I wish that didn't, but I do.
Makes sense, and at least if we're putting some effort into at least the initial stage, making sure that we're accounting for that potential bias. But as with that, I think body language does say a lot about it. We feel afterwards. Although it is hard to do that over Zoom.
I agree.
Yep, I agree too.
Everyone seems at the same spot. I only have one question, which is just, is this something that we want to actually, the second part, just run by our DIB committee for feedback before we make a final decision on the second part? The first part is coming first. We sound clear. We don't want to see names. We want numbers, correct? And the second one, we all sound like we're in the same place, but I also sometimes think that for me, it's sometimes useful to hear perspectives from other folks whose lived experience is different than mine. So I wouldn't mind hearing what they have to say, although we still make the decision about what we do about it. So does anybody other than me want to hear if folks there have any?
No,
Feedback?
I would like to hear it just in case I'm not thinking of something. I would not mind hearing it, but again.
Sounds like we're probably where we're gonna end.
I can email them now and ask if any of them, I could explain that this is what we're planning to do and or this is what we're thinking to do, but we would welcome feedback if any of them.
When is your next actual meeting? Second week of February?
Second week of, yeah, it's the second
We aren't gonna
Tuesday.
need to know this for quite a while.
We won't need
What
to
we're
know for a little bit.
gonna
So we could just
Until
ask
April,
for
correct?
input.
Yeah, it'll be, it would probably be March-ish. Yeah,
So this isn't something you need for the.
I don't have
at
to
this
know
point
right
in
now.
the
I'll just give you, I think it's a great idea to consider both ways. I will tell you, there is some value to seeing how they present themselves.
Mhm.
So, and having the opportunity to see that before you get to the finalist in person. That's the only thing I would
Sure.
say, so you kind of have to weigh both. There is a value to being able to see them, right? So you just kind of have to weigh that.
I'm personally in agreement with other folks. I like seeing people, but I think I just would like, since we have the time.
Yep.
Just get feedback in case
Yeah,
it's
I think that's great.
strongly different to at least consider it. Is that comfortable for folks? Okay. And then we are on to salaries and benefits, the biggest item probably of the evening. Lisa sent us some comparative salary numbers from recent hires in Maine, some opinions about our benefits package. There also were some, at the end of that same document, I put my own explanation of what buying down mortgage points means based off the Bangor Savings Bank site, because I didn't actually know. So, in case anyone like me didn't know what that was before now. We've had some emails also about benefit amounts that have gone around. Have you all seen those today?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're at a point where we need to talk about salary. Do you want to say anything, Lisa, before we start our conversation about what you need from us is a salary range?
Correct.
Can you explain what you need for the brochure exactly?
Yeah,
Job
so we'll
description?
need salary range. It is hard to get people, you always have the opportunity to advertise without one. It doesn't work well, right? Because taking the risk to apply is a big risk and people don't really want to do that unless they know that it's going to be somewhere in the ballpark that is going to work for them financially. So we would strongly recommend that there be a range in the brochure. Outside of that, we feel, and we talked to Sarah beforehand, that the top number we would like to see it be at least 150, that anything lower than that would be a challenge as a top number based on kind of what you all had originally said about, what you were looking for from an experience and leadership standpoint. So, there you go.
I think this is where we need to open up to you all about
So-
salary range.
Okay. Just about the salary range, I was gonna ask just to sing about the
We
benefits,
want to start there because that may affect what you want to do with
what the
salary. range.
benefits,
Yeah.
well, yeah, just that I think I'd send it, I assume that like the benefits and what we're matching and all that stuff is potentially a negotiation. It's
It is,
not-
so we would not include those, so in other words, we might say in the job description brochure, and there is a travel allowance, there is a cell phone allowance, there is, different components as it relates to retirement. But some of those we would not give numbers to because they could be part of negotiations.
That's what I thought. And so I guess I'll just comment on the salary range. Did you provide these numbers for us for the main ones?
I
From-
did.
From this
Just
year?
just from this last year, and I did put a note there that you know, if you take the time to go look at the candidates hired, there is a correlation between the experience and some issues as it relates to the salary data.
The candidates hired at these positions.
Correct.
So if we were to look up what level, so again,
Which I did, I didn't go look at the things. I just compared populations in these communities just for,
Right, so the intangible is that some of them at a lower salary have a lot less experience. So that's, like you said, when we originally talked, when you look at salary range, I always say this, that you're going to get what you pay for. So if you want to pay less, which there's not a problem with that, you're going to look at candidates who have a lot less experience and vice versa. So there's flexibility. I would say, yes, there's flexibility, but you have to understand that those two things go together.
Do most of the towns in the range that you compared include staffing for an assistant town manager, or is the town manager a solo player?
So it depends. There's a both in those numbers. I didn't dive to that detail, I'm sorry, but yeah, there are, but in that group, there's both scenarios.
Do you have the experience kind of range of the Farmington? I'm just curious, manager, because the Farmington, I'm really curious about Farmington. For a number of.
Not see if I were-
Another college town,
Town.
yeah.
Another university town, it's
I did not, I don't have that experience written down. That was the one that was the 115 for the first year and 120 for the second year. Yeah,
It has about 5 years.
about 5 years.
I think I did hear maybe throughout earlier conversations that maybe Farmington had been advertising for quite a while. And then
3 times.
Yeah.
3 times.
I lived it.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right, you were the,
Intro.
okay,
not one
yeah.
advertised 3 times. So was the salary lower the first couple times and they brought it up? Do we know?
No, I don't know that. I know what they hired at.
Oh,
but I
I
don't
know.
They may have boosted the salary. The 3 times where the negotiations fell through at the last minute. Not sure it had to do with salary.
I just, speaking out loud and not to bash on any other town or community, it's similar that it's a college community, but it's kind of, not that we're in the middle of, we're a mecca here, but Farmington's Farmington. It's a little off the beaten path. Now, if you want to go to Sugarloaf, that's really nice, but it's a different, I think we have a lot to offer here. And so Bar Harbor at 155 and York at 175 at the top, it's Waterville 155. They're a city with 15,000, 16,000 people. I think we spoke publicly about 150 and it's a 30% jump over where we are. So that's not insignificant. I think where we were was sort of in range for, obviously it's in range with Farmington. Not saying, it happens when you hire new, that's everyone's gonna get what they get. That's their time to get, and that's the plan, I'm sure. But so I guess I don't love going to 150. How do you position that as a range? Do you say like?
So generally,
150?
yeah, we would say
Yeah.
like 120 to 150.
Yep.
Yes.
And I don't know who looks at that and thinks, well, I'm gonna go for the 120, but it is a negotiation, so I think that's.
Part of that, generally people are gonna expect that that's based
Experience, I
on
would think.
experience.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody, Leo, who has been a city manager somewhere for 5 years, as a city manager or town manager, and part of that, they were in a director's role, whatever it may be, right? So they've got a bulk of work that's 10 to 15 years and they've been in a top spot for 5 years, they're gonna expect probably near the top of your range. They come with a lot of experience. If you have somebody who is an assistant town manager or maybe a director wanting to make that jump, right? They're not gonna expect to be at the top of your range. They're gonna expect to be in a different point in your range. So that's when we always usually put depending on qualifications, right? Where that's kind of where you fall in the range. But just know, because every once in a while, I'll have these situations and you review candidates and you really like this person, they bring tons of experience and they have a track record of success, but you don't want to pay the top of the range.
Yeah.
Just know that if we put that out there and you get somebody like that, that's what they're gonna be looking for. But it does give you the opportunity to decide, do we want to pay for more experience, or do we have somebody we'd rather take a risk on
Yeah.
and pay a little bit less?
What are other folks feeling about salary range?
Curious what you might suggest is the lower part of the range.
I would probably suggest 115 or 120 for the lower part of the range.
I would like to attract top candidate and have a chance to have conversations with top candidates. And I mean, based on these figures and what you've shared, I want to be in negotiation with the top candidate, and to the point that it kind of hurts a little bit, but we're, someone we want desperately. So if 150 is what you recommend for going out as the top range, I definitely support that.
Yeah, I was thinking 120, 150.
That's right.
To the 115. That's my gut.
So we used to, when we paid our previous town manager her salary, we were also paying for an assistant town manager. Currently, we're not. I don't know what structure will look like in the future, but right now we're capturing some savings. We're not having two executive administrators.
Yeah.
So I'd be more comfortable with the 150 now than maybe I would have been 6 months ago.
Right.
Although we did also make up for the assistant manager leaving by creating other higher level positions.
Yeah.
So I do think a lot of that workload was picked up by those promotions elsewhere too. I mean, just to be fair.
But we may not have to hire another assistant on
Right,
top.
we
of
might not, right, I get your point. Yeah, that makes sense. Sonia?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious for your insight, Lissa, about how big a range to advertise. I'm like a little bit tempted to look at big round numbers and advertise like 115 to 155, which is a big range, but also I personally have like pretty great openness to a less experienced but totally fabulous and could grow into it candidate at a lower range, as well
Right.
as wanting to talk with people who have a really amazing track record and are being recruited that way. And but also you might know things I don't about, like, that's too big a window.
I mean, I probably wouldn't do a lot more than that,
Yeah.
right? I would say 50,000 from top to bottom. Well, I mean, you're looking at percentage, right, of total
Yeah.
salary a little bit, but so I would say 40 to 50, I wouldn't do probably more than that in a range. Part of what you have to wrap your mind around is the marketing piece of it too. I'll just, right,
Yeah.
this is the marketing material and the range is part of that marketing material.
Yeah.
You want it to look, attractive.
Yeah.
So I would say I would probably either do 120 to 150 or maybe 115 to 155 because it looks a little better than saying, anyway. It's up to you. I want everybody to be comfortable, but I want you all to have the opportunity to take a look at candidates that you realistically can consider.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then have the opportunity to select within those.
Yeah. And
So it sounds like we've heard 120 to 150 or 115 to 155. Feel like I'm an auctioneer.
One,
We heard either
What-
120 to 150.
I was thinking it'd be 115 to 150 or 120 to 155, but why do we like
She
the
was
fives or fives?
suggesting that the numbers.
I was saying
I was saying-
it looks better from.
Right, so I think
Yeah.
we're either 150.
These are not me, but it's the important people who do the marketing piece.
Yeah.
So I think we're either at we're sounding like we have 115 to 155, 120 to 150. Something else you want to put on the?
No, just the people, and you see the ranges, right? So if we make it 155 and $1, I mean, we get people, And I'm also very open to like an up and comer like you are. So
Uh-huh.
it's gonna be just who we think's gonna be.
Yeah.
All that too. So
I would I think, Cornell mentioned to us, I think, and I would hope he'd reiterate. I agree with Cornell's take that this is not, I don't think this is a community. And we did the same thing on the superintendent search too, that this really isn't a place to cut your teeth on a new job. I really don't think Orono is. So, an up and comer, I get it. I like the idea, but in reality, I think this is a tough place to cut your teeth, and I think it would be not a great.
So how does that influence numbers, which is what we're trying to decide right now? How do you feel
Up
about
and comer.
115 to 155?
I probably would be, I'm in favor of 150 being the top, to be honest, but
So you'd prefer we stick at 120, 150? Anyone else over here on either side of that?
And I'm not, I mean, it's a range. I'm not. I don't feel that strongly. We're up there.
So. Have you ever had an experience where $5,000 like? Made or.
Yeah, I have actually, and it makes me want to pull my hair out.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So, and they said, I can't, I love this community, I wanna be here, but I'm not moving here without 155, I'm just curious.
yeah, I mean, we end up in those situations a lot. What you have to realize, and I said this, I'll say this to everybody, like when somebody comes, there, when somebody's looking at applying to this job, they're gonna look at three things to start with, okay? They're going to look at the news as it relates to town council and town manager to see why you don't have one right now. They're going to watch some of the recent town council meetings and probably ones surrounding that departure. And they're going to look at your salary range for the position. And then third, they're gonna go look at Zillow. Okay, those are the three things they're gonna do before they apply to your role, right? So those are our three biggest I'll call them opportunities instead of obstacles, right? But those are our three biggest opportunities to put a best foot forward as we can to convince somebody that they want to come work here, okay? So when you're looking at all those factors and you're looking at salary, you gotta put those other two things with it, right? Because it's not just, I'm looking at salary as salary attractive. It is everything combined. And when I first started the search, I was telling them I went to Zillow, there was one house on the market in the entire town limits, okay? And so that's a challenge for somebody who is going to have to relocate, right? So think of it holistically as a package. You don't want to lose somebody over $3,000 to $5,000 that's your right candidate. Also, I mean, you know, do you have the ability to go above that? Yeah, you might get a little scuttlebutt back, right? Because you went above what you advertised, but it's a marketing document, right? It's not a legal document.
Yeah.
So, but you know, if you're willing to go above it, do you want to include a range that includes some of those, you know, includes a little more leeway so that they're interested in applying? Then, you know, that's up to you.
Just to kind of clarify, this is based, I mean, do we lose someone because of $5,000? We don't know that.
You
Yeah.
don't,
It's true.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's in the negotiation.
I guess,
I'm with you, Leo, I think it seems reasonable, 120 to 150, but. I like
That
it.
feels fine.
Don't-
Yeah.
Are.
How about
really-
110 to 150? Does 110 feel too low?
110 is lower than what we were paying our previous manager.
she would have a lot of years of
But
experience.
she had a lot of years of experience.
Quite a few.
You can do what
Alright.
you want to do.
120 to
Mrs.
150?
recommendation is?
I would do 120 to
Thank
150
you.
if I were you.
Great.
Sounds great to me. Everybody feel good? 120 to 150, I want to bang a gavel, sold. Okay.
Next time on the wire.
All right, that being said, we should talk a little bit about benefits. There's a benefit section also in this profile. So there's information here about types of insurance, health insurance, vision, dental, short-term disability. Also about leave and vacation. It looks like the information from staff is that previous manager, I guess, was based on this 6 weeks vacation annually and 3 weeks of sick time annually. Is that pretty
So-
comparable? 6 weeks is, yeah,
Can I just say, she was here for
12 years. This is my point. This was probably built up to over time.
So what I would say on vacation, what I would say on vacation specifically is vacation is a pretty large negotiating tool, okay? So I definitely wouldn't put how much you're offering in the brochure at all. You don't need to decide right now. I think it's good for you all to know that that's how much she had.
Yeah.
And then based on, you know, their experience, I mean, sometimes somebody will take a little bit less salary if they get an extra week or two of vacation, to be honest, you know, and that might be something. You know, I've said again that our culture is shifting somewhat where work-life balance is a factor. You know, not as much as salary, but it is work-life balance is more important than it has been historically. So you might have some opportunity, you know, to negotiate there. So I would just say, keep in mind where you were at. And then once we get to that part of the search process, when we get in those negotiations, you'll kind of have a little bit of a roadmap based on your thoughts on experience and vacation.
Just on the benefits piece, because I spoke last time about, no, I think, and I do think it's a job that where you have to be here That said, Mitch commented, probably our last manager was working out probably more than she should have, and that was kind of the thing we were trying to not have happen, but with all that said, I don't think it should be, I don't want to advertise like you can work remotely, but by the same token, I think they are a professional. And if they do work at home a day, it should be an option. So I don't know I don't know what others think of that, and I don't know how you put that in there. I don't think it's a position geared for remote work. But
I don't think there's a lot of people, and Cornell may feel like I'm wrong, but not a lot of people who do the job who would feel like they do a super great job remote in the permanent role. But I do think that you could add some language just around the fact that work-life balance is important to the town. So that might be something that I would include and not get into specifics. And then if it comes up as a part of what someone's looking for, then we can discuss further. In other words, if I get a candidate that says, hey, I really want to apply to this job, but I really just for my work-life balance need to work from home every Friday, that's something I would present to you all when I present them as an applicant. Yeah.
I think you had some questions about the travel stipend issue on here, and currently all I know from staff is cell phone and travel stipend, but I don't know what that means. Is that something you need more details on?
Yeah, so generally, I have not heard of a travel stipend. Generally, there's a car allowance, so, but I'm open to whatever y'all have. I don't have a problem with that. I was just curious if the travel stipend is like a car allowance, or is it like an annual amount, or do we know?
Mitch might be, do you know Mitch or Cornell?
Well, we do have travel. I don't know the particulars of
Yeah.
that contract, but
You haven't sometimes for staff?
a lot of it has to do with travel to either within the state or to meetings and things like that being reimbursed for
Conferences.
that. So it's not necessarily for a car, it's for reimbursement for the travel expenses. And we do it. I think the previous manager was set up as a stipend, so you got one amount that covers that. And if they went over that, they went over that, it was the amount that was given, as opposed to being reimbursed for every travel, like putting in reimbursement for every travel.
I can check Zach, but he's just gone. My contract last year, working in 22 was $3,250 a month. Travel stipend, and if I traveled out of state, I would reimburse the federal rate, but
So within the
around
state,
town
there's a
and-
certain amount you were given per month. So probably it's something like that. Do you need more details about that?
No.
Okay. So I think then the other thing on here is also on the work-life balance, we do have this long list of wellness programs, which I know staff have really, Rich could speak more about, but Cornell could, but we've invested a lot over the last few years, correct, in supporting staff and wellness and making sure there's wellness programs and gym membership. And I don't know if one of you wants to say more about that, but
that's the university.
Yeah, and we have an opportunity that you can go and use a day pass at the university that's on the town. And then be in programs and get assessed for health, what things you should be doing, things like that.
so if you need more information about that, let Cornell know, and
Okay.
that'll be fine.
It would be great if there is, I don't know if the town has like a benefits document that you use already for prospective employees. But if you don't, it'll probably be a good idea to put something like that together.
And then the only benefit that we haven't talked about here is retirement. It looks like we have some data here on previous contribution amounts. I don't know if that's something
You just need to say you
Yeah.
participate in main PERS and Mission Square 457.
And is this standard across the state? So everyone who participates in main PERS, the employee and employer rates are set?
Yep.
Is it typical that, is it sometimes true that the employer pays the employee contribution also? Or does that never happen in the main PERS municipal world? Some of our emails earlier today made it sound to me
I
like.
don't know, is it never happens. It may be more common now because salaries have and benefits have jumped just in the last few years.
But I think we already discussed that that's gonna be sort of a big negotiation.
Right, so we're not gonna talk about numbers
Yeah.
on that right now. I gotcha. But I guess my other question is, I understand that the main PERS is a regular fixed amount, but if we look at any of these other things like 457, that isn't a fixed amount
Right.
and is not necessarily a benefit with every job. And are we offering that is a question, and are we paying in at the same rate that, I mean, that stuff we'll all negotiate when we get there, but you
Yeah.
won't advertise any of that.
Right, and the 457 would be your deferred compensation. That's something that could be a negotiating tool as well. So whether or not you have it and at what percentage, would you agree, Cornell?
Yes.
Yeah,
Just
so
the
I
fact
would,
That it's available
is,
as an option is
yeah.
good.
yeah,
And then I think the only other thing to talk about was this, which brings us kind of, unless, wait, if someone has a question about something that's not housing or buying down mortgage points, speak now.
Housing, well, I was,
We're getting to that next.
I
Yeah.
was thinking relocation. I didn't know if that's a standard thing or if that you find that's
Yeah.
something that
So
housing.
relocation is definitely a standard thing. I would anticipate that, you're going to, someone would want some amount of relocation assistance. Now, when you start, I was telling them that, we've seen our first housing allowances even in the last 6 to 12 months, which is kind of new to the municipal world. But part of that is to overcome the housing and the cost of housing and the mortgage rates. So many options there. Like I said, you would definitely want to discuss further with your attorney and have a look at your state laws and the charter as well. But anything you can do to kind of help offset. So if you're looking at somebody right now and they're making $100,000, okay, in their job, and they want to come work here for you, but they're gonna have to relocate. So there's the housing cost, and then addition with the mortgage rates, there's an additional hard cost even for the exact same mortgage, right? So they have to make it significant. Sometimes they're not gonna take on a role with more responsibility with no increase, which means almost it's kind of like a double whammy, right? Because they want some increase for the additional responsibility, but then they're gonna have to have increase as well to cover the costs, or they're taking a financial hit. And so anything you can do to help overcome that is going to help you.
And we did get a preliminary opinion from the town attorney, correct, that buying down of mortgage points is fine.
Can do it.
As far as he's concerned with our charter and main law. So you had mentioned that's another negotiating point
Right.
as part of relocation costs, and I did send some details on that, which people had. About, it is an upfront cost to us, but it's not a repeating cost. So as opposed to jacking up somebody's salary, if it's a one-time, I don't know, I'm making this number up, but $30,000 cost is cheaper than a repeating
Absolutely,
$10,000
and
cost.
could be, honestly, something that kind of could put you over the hump as far as being an attractive option for people, because like I said, a lot of people, it's not that we're not seeing a lot of, well, we're seeing a lot of open positions, but not a lot of interest in those open positions, and there's multiple reasons, but probably one of the biggest right now is just that it costs a lot to relocate at the moment.
So is that also something that will not go in the brochure and just comes in the negotiation stage, but we just need to let
Yeah, we'll
you-
probably put something in there, just very generic around relocation assistance, et cetera.
Everyone feel good about that? Okay, so questions remaining on salary or benefits or housing or relocation costs or any of those things? from council?
This is where we talk about the residential requirement, right?
Yeah,
It is.
we should. That's the
Housing,
other
yeah.
issue
Yeah.
is the housing requirement.
Yeah.
And our charter language says that they must live in town, but council has the ability to override that. For whatever amount of time we make a written agreement to override it for, correct?
Right.
So I don't know how you want to communicate that to candidates and what you need from us. to
Well,
communicate
it's
that.
up to you. So I'll present a couple different options.
Yeah.
So, one is you could override it for a time period, right? And say you're gonna give them 12 months or whatever it may be, okay? You're gonna need some time in there anyway, because like I said, there was one house on the market in the entire town when I first looked, right? So there's no guarantee, you're gonna have to give them a time to find a place to live. Another option is that you override it for indefinite, right? And sometimes we'll see towns in this situation. So I had one recently that they basically ended up saying you need to live within so many air miles, which is basically just saying a straight line, right? You need to live within 15 to 20 air miles of the town. In other words, that way there's a set expectation about how quickly you can respond to things, okay? And yeah, that opens up a whole nother housing options, right? So if housing is a pain point, but that's up to you guys, whether or not you want to do that, I know that there's strong feelings, obviously, around someone's town manager living in their town. But you also need to weigh that with the availability of housing, because you don't want to get yourself in a situation. We also had one not too recently where they did do a 12-month. And the guy had put offers in, I think it was on 3 houses, and not gotten any of them. And he ended up leaving at the end of 12 months because he felt like he had done everything he can and his family was uber stressed out. Like it was just causing lots of personal turmoil trying to find a home. So food for thought, it's up to you guys.
I think, I mean, our charter was written 54 years ago, and I mean, things have changed in terms of work life, balancing, availability and things like that. I mean, you could do some of this job from Carabasset Valley and,
Just listen, even
I
get
do it
here
well.
at the Valley.
So I would like to send the message that, we do have this charter, we have this hope that with expectation that the manager would live in the community, but we understand that there's a transition and there's could be extenuating circumstances, and that we're gonna work really hard to
Yeah.
accommodate that. I think that's feels like the right message.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want availability of housing to discourage somebody who's going to want to invest in our community. To me, the community investment is the important part, and where they end up paying property taxes is very secondary to that.
Someone's gonna, a sophomore, a junior in high school somewhere, that's a reasonable
Yeah.
drive, and that student wants to finish, with their.
And I mean, Orono's a great town, and I wouldn't blame our next town manager for wanting to live here and be able to send their kids to our schools or whatever else, but if it takes them 3 years to find the right house in town, is it fine with me if they live in Alton? Yes.
I personally, I'd rather have, I don't know if you can, if we can position it, but I think putting a 12-month on it is, I do want them to live in town and be invested in, be a taxpayer here. I mean, they're the ones that are kind of in charge of charging the taxes ultimately, is along with us. And I think that's not something I'm looking or willing to just, and I don't think that's what you said. that
No, it's
just
not.
Do away with.
Yeah.
I mean, I like positioning it as, and that said, I think we talked about it before, and in 12 months, that sounds like an extreme situation where they were stressed and, move, but in, 12 months, usually you probably know if there's a good fit and,
Yeah.
maybe it wasn't a good fit in that scenario, but I can't imagine any board with a good fitting, a good fitting, town manager saying, okay, 12 months.
Yeah, I think it's just about knowing that it's not a hill you're gonna die on.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Well,
Like,
and,
if everything else is working, why would you make that be a?
right. Yeah.
Anyway.
I think so. Maybe the way you word it's, I think was a good way to put it, but I'm definitely not, and times have changed and they have, but I'm not looking to just forego that requirement.
either.
So you're both saying that you think the ultimate goal would be to have them live in town, but the amount of time it takes for them to find a house in town and be able to relocate into that is flexible?
Yeah.
Or are we, and Lissa, is flexible good advertising wise, or is it better to say 12 months up front to find your housing in Orono and can be extended if needed, or something like that?
I
For
would
extenuating
probably,
circumstances.
I would definitely probably put the 12 months in there,
Yeah.
but make it clear that you all realize that it could be a challenge and you're willing to work with that person. Does that make sense? You're willing to work with a selected
So like a
candidate.
12-month number would be good to have, but could be extended with extenuating circumstances or something like that. Does that?
I'd rather not have a time,
You
and
don't want-
just use words like reasonable that can be, I mean, but.
I was saying, because that's what Leo had wanted. I mean, if you don't have a time, then at what point are you gonna make it?
Talking point or a discussion.
A
point.
discussion? I guess that's my thing, because I wouldn't want somebody to read it and be like, okay, well, I don't have to live there. I'm gonna apply and say all the right things to you, but really have no intent to move. And then at some point that becomes the sticking point. Now, to Leo's point, if everything's working, maybe it's not a huge deal. I will say this, the more flexible you can be on this, the better your position as far as your candidate pool. At the same token, you have to weigh that with how you feel about residency, okay? So, I'm not gonna tell you what you have to do. And if somebody feels strongly that, you know, there needs to be a deadline, I 100% support that. I don't want you to get taken advantage of. In other words, I don't want there to be an expectation and I'll work really hard to vet candidates on that. But it is a tenuous issue right now more than it's ever been. So, you know, depending on the language we use, could create more questions than answers. And I don't know that that's good.
That was my question is, I just want to know what goes in the brochure that puts people's minds at ease as opposed to if it just says willing, flexible on residency, does that make people feel like, well, maybe they'll give me a month or, I mean, what do we need to? put
No, I mean,
people's
if you
minds
said
at
that, then they're thinking, oh, I don't ever have to move there. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
So that's what I'm
That's the
saying,
thing.
what's the language that you?
Like, in other words, if we're sitting in this room and the expectation is at some point,
Eventually.
you know, they're gonna move here, whether that's 12 months or 18 months, whatever it may be, right? You know, then I think it's okay to put in there, hey, you know, our expectation is that you work towards moving here. We'd like to see that happen in 12 months. You know, but we're willing to discuss circumstances as they develop
Mhm.
anyway.
Does that mean
So
you're
what we wrote in the description.
Description of the
that we
job.
worked on over the weekend is that the town manager may reside outside of town only with the written approval of the town council, section 114 of the council manager charter. The council expects its manager to live in the community, but understands that the housing market in Orono is tight. It's tight, an industry word that you looked that up.
I don't know, you can
Teasing
change
you,
it
I'm
down.
teasing you. It's tight and intends to accommodate a reasonable time for residential transition and extenuating circumstances. So. I like that, I mean, I
You like that? one?
helped draft it, so I liked it, but I
So did that didn't have a month in it, did it?
didn't have a
Nope.
month in it.
Okay. Well, and then to Sonia's point, then that does maybe, you know, so when you put language in there like that, as Sonia brought up a candidate a minute ago that maybe has a sophomore in high school. Okay, I'm gonna get, my phone's gonna ring. It's like, hey, I'm really interested in Orono, but I can't move there for 2 years because I've got my kid, they're super involved, you know. So let me tell you something, that's a cultural change too, and I don't necessarily think it's negative. It used to people just uprooted their families and moved them here and there, and people don't do that as much anymore,
Yeah.
right? It is a cultural change across the board that we're seeing, so.
Yeah.
You know, so if you don't put a date in there, then that opens up the opportunity to have those phone calls, and like I said, you know, you can evaluate them as a candidate. I mean, and honestly, that may mean that somebody is selected over them because you have somebody who's like, I'll move as soon as I can, you know,
Well,
But-
I guess I'm wondering what you're thinking in that scenario, if it's coming from Minnesota and saying, I'm not gonna
No.
live for 2 years, or if it's coming from Alton.
exactly.
Which.
Those are two different things.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will say this. I think it's important to be clear that you don't want a commuter.
Yeah.
Okay, so, you know, that we can make that clear.
Yeah, that's, you said what kind of community?
A commuter, like a weekly commuter.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
don't, I mean, that's an interim type thing, but it's,
Which we're very,
Not-
very grateful
yes.
for now. Thank you so much.
but
Mhm.
it's not realistic. Let me say this, I have never really seen that work long-term. And I don't think that's what you're looking for. So. It would mean it would have to be somebody nearby who, for whatever reason, needs a little bit of time to get moved. Usually in these situations, my point is you don't want a superstar who's 30 minutes away to not apply because of it.
Totally.
You know, so,
Yeah.
Or somebody who's got a couple of months delay that they
Yeah.
have to figure
Yeah,
out. how to apply if they're a
exactly.
superstar contract. All right, do we feel comfortable at this point, Lisa, with what you've gotten from us to?
yeah, he said he's got language in there, right?
Yeah.
All right, so should we move then to job description or are there more housing issues we want to talk about? Job description. Okay, here we go. Dan gets the lion's share of the credit for all this work and did a really great job, in my opinion, working in from the survey that was put out to the community. The feedback we got on that for the kind of leader we wanted and the adjectives. He really did a great job working that in, especially in the personal characteristics section.
I thought it was important that,
This is the one that says job description 2 with edits from SGR dot demerit marks. You got that one, Leo? It's in your drive. I put them all there.
which one is it? Job description 2 with
Job
edits from-
description 2. It says the number 2.
Says job description markup comparison SGR to.
No,
Job description 2 with edits from SGR dot demerit hyphen
Sonia, you
marks.
see it on the screen?
Job description with suggestions, possible timeline.
Job description, I think it might be this one. Click the 3 dots. Are you sure it's not that one?
It's job description markup comparison. That's not it, she said. What do you have? It's a typo.
It's on that same email, right?
It's all in the same email
Yeah.
in
I'm
the
in the
drive.
drive.
I put them all in the drive, Leo.
I think it might be this one. Cover this one again.
You can look at it right now.
No, there's, scroll down,
The drive. Let him-
Well, while I was looking for it, I just say that I think the survey and
this one.
Job description 2 with edits.
Yay.
I think the
Because these are
survey,
chronological.
I think the survey should be,
Sorry.
Is there a way to change your view so you could see like,
There probably is.
All of it?
I know.
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I thought the survey was really helpful to, 300 people participated and strong input. So, and I do think we need to, if we don't have, hopefully we have time tonight to talk about make sure it gets posted so people can see what the results were.
I just made a one-page fact sheet I'll have printed for tomorrow.
Oh,
That's the Reader's Digest version with some more graphics.
Oh, excellent.
And I
Yeah.
think we will talk about this at the end about where else to post it,
Okay.
but if we could focus
Yeah.
on the job description part now,
Yep.
that would be great. Okay, everyone got it? Leo, are you in? Okay, Lisa, do you have access to it? Okay. Dan, you want to talk us through? I mean, most of the changes, I put in the notes here that the focus of the changes was personal characteristics section, especially to really add in the characteristics that came from the public survey and focus on that. Also, eliminating mandatory and required language was brought up by council in favor of preferred or equivalent experience as much as possible, so that we're not in a situation where we could be sued for not hiring the person that had that experience and hiring someone who didn't have it. Anytime we use prefer, a mandatory or required, we need to really mean that it's mandatory or required. So work was done to eliminate a lot of mandatory and required language. And then Jeff had made suggestions about being sure to work in the importance to our community and our council about the DIB work. And also some issue about driving, because it's hard to do this job in rural Maine without
Yeah.
driving. I also have left you a few things highlighted in yellow. Lisa had asked us questions about who the town attorney reports to, who the town assessor and town clerk report to. I answered those questions based on the charter,
Yeah.
1.1.3A, but I wanted council to all read that language, because I think that's really important, that we all feel like I described it well. It says town attorney who is appointed by council and reports to council, but who as a practical matter generally reports through the town manager, is what I wrote for town attorney. And then the town manager appoints the town assessor and the town clerk, who both report directly to the town manager.
Yeah.
It is also true, however, that council has to confirm those appointments. So if that
Yeah.
matters, Lisa, that it needs to state that we have to confirm the appointments the manager makes.
I think I would put it on there just so.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll add something about town manager also hires all town staff, is responsible for all contracted personnel, and appoints the town assessor and the town clerk, who both report directly to the town manager. Appointments of town assessor and town clerk are confirmed by the town council, something like that, all that
Great.
sentence, all right. And then, the other thing I highlighted in yellow, is at the end, under this category that said, essential functions. We didn't talk about this at the last meeting, but I guess I just wanted to bring it forward. I added, I did not say to drive, I said ability to travel, typically requiring a valid driver's license. I got that language from the university job descriptions.
I like
Someone
it.
might have another way to travel without having their own license, and I think that's legitimate. I also, in our job description from 2003, there was still language that said ability to see well enough and hear well enough to do job requirements, which isn't, in what I can see, typical language anymore. It's much
Yeah.
more typical to say ability to prepare reports, presentations, correspondence, and other documents effectively, excellent oral and written communication skills. And so I added those in instead. Again, I just poached them off the university job descriptions, but if there's some other language folks want added,
I appreciate those changes. They feel more inclusive and in line with how we're expecting someone to do a job rather than expecting someone to have particular abilities.
anyone else have any comments on those changes? Those are fine. I did leave ability to read, speak, and write in English. Those are on some of the university job descriptions, especially the international ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it would be a difficult job to do otherwise.
Yeah.
People comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay, so those are my yellow ones, and then I think we should go and talk about maybe starting. Has everyone read it through education and experience desired, and personal characteristics?
Yeah. I really appreciated, I think maybe it was Dan's edits to this that, I think to me felt like it really captured the spirit of some of what we're hoping for in a new town manager, so.
Your thoughts?
I thought, I hope that it has an element where we don't expect the manager to be an expert on all the administrative functions that it takes to successfully manage operations of a town. I mean, but rather to supervise people who are experts in those. So a working knowledge and ability to, you know, understand and to set expectations and measure and manage against those makes a lot of sense to me, but I thought it was asking too much to say, you gotta be someone who knows how to do all the finance stuff and all the HR stuff and plow the roads and things like that, so I felt like this creates room for that person. And if there's someone who's got oodles and oodles of experience in all those separate functions and, you know, has been a 30-year municipal employee who's kind of worn all the different hats and lands here, and that's great too. But I didn't want to necessarily shut the door on somebody who could be a great leader without necessarily being a involved expert on all the different elements of the job.
Struck that balance. Well, I appreciate that a lot of this is like the process. Relatable, personal. I really appreciated like in the personal characteristics section. The last sentence you had, the manager will work with integrity, transparency, and at times vulnerability, to build trust and courtesies. That's a really nice sentence.
I was worried you wouldn't like that, so I felt like there's my own little vulnerability right there. An example of vulnerability for you right off the top.
I think it shows apart.
Other thoughts?
I really like the layout and I think it's clear. I like the major areas of responsibility. I think you hit the highlights of things that we've discussed and that were brought up in the survey. I'm wondering as a marketing document, is 12 areas of responsibility too much to put in there?
No,
And I'm satisfied. I really like the line.
not for this role. And that might be for something else, but
These 12 bullet points when we see major areas. of
Oh, at the
responsibility.
top, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, got it, yeah, thank
I
you,
just,
thank you.
I don't think there's one that we don't want to have. I just, you know, what people want to saw.
it depends on the role, but not for this role.
How, what's that, how is this looking so far?
No, I think it's great. So, you know, it'll be, we'll use all these components, right? But there'll be in different parts of the brochure related to marketing. You'll get to see it obviously, like we talked about, review. But no, I think it's excellent.
Anyone else have feedback on this?
Thank you. Appreciate all the work.
I did want us to make sure that we flip from this to the profile document for a minute to make sure things sync up, because I think right now, if you go in the updated 1/22/24 town position profile info.
1/22/24 version.
The title, yeah. It's in the drive and I did not attach it to my email because I didn't have it. It's in the drive. Cornell put it into the drive. Can you all access it there?
Got it.
Okay, so if we go,
L for Leo. Right at the top.
Leo, I think it's a really good idea to have everything in the drive. So I think it's a really good suggestion and thank you for bringing it up. And I was happy to do it and I hope it's working. I think it's a great idea.
Yes, like it.
Okay, so if we scroll all the way down to position information, I just want to be sure that what's here is matching what we now have in the job description. Because under required education qualification certificates, we did not specify what a degree had to be in our job description. And Dan, look at that language. Did you even specify like what was required? Did it say bachelor's degree?
Yeah,
required?
no, we didn't. We said a bachelor's degree or equivalent credentials and experience. So we didn't say public administration or business. So
I'm not comfortable putting the kind of bachelor's degree you have to have, because I think people can get their bachelor's in anything and later get a master's in
Absolutely.
whatever, so I would certainly like the subject out. I guess, I mean, I'm thinking it would be pretty rare to have someone applying for this job who didn't have a bachelor's degree, so I'm perfectly fine with requiring that unless others are feeling like they can think of a scenario. It used to happen a lot, I
That
think,
would
years ago,
probably-
that people worked their way up sometimes through management from the lower levels and didn't always have a degree, but that doesn't, I don't think that typically is happening anymore.
It still happens some.
Okay, so we should leave it in
I would
place?
leave it that,
Right.
probably because you also should somewhere, I'm guessing, have an overarching HR policy that says the same thing.
Yeah.
Almost every organization does, that says that, equivalent
Or equivalent.
combination.
Yeah.
So, because in other words, if you had somebody who had worked their way up, right, and they did have 20 years of experience and they had, yeah, you wouldn't want to not be able to consider them because
Yeah.
you drew that line in the sand.
Yep.
Okay, so this will now say minimum of a bachelor's degree or equivalent experience? Is that what this will say here on your profile, Alyssa, then?
Yes,
Right.
Okay, and master's degree preferred.
correct.
Love it.
Then likewise, under required work experience, it says 5 to 7 years of experience in municipal government. And I believe in the job description, you have alternate language that says in municipal government or in a similarly structured organization or something like that in the job.
So
description.
we'll use the job description if that's what
Great,
you
so
want
you'll
us
fill
to.
that.
Yes, yeah. So they'll just know that I'll make sure it's clear for our tech writing team, but
Okay, that's great. And likewise, I had messaged with Cornell about gosh, Cornell, where's the section in the profile about, that related to the charter, who reports to who again? I'll find it.
So while you're right,
go ahead.
where we are there, though, required work experience, 5 to 7 years, and then preferred work experience, are we gonna, there's nothing there, right?
There's nothing right now, do folks,
I mean, I feel like that's,
are we,
extra and maybe doesn't need to be there.
Pages of,
right in the same
5.
section?
5 of 8.
but you're saying what you have in the job description is what you want to
Yeah.
use. Yeah, so it's fine. It doesn't matter. As long as like you all agree on the job description,
I see.
I'll just tell them that trumps any information that was in the original profile. Does that make sense?
It does. That helps, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Other question I had, oh, just again, if you look under the organization information part of the profile, I think that needs to get adjusted also under positions that are appointed and or confirmed by the governing body.
Okay.
It's currently a little confusing. I have some alternate language. Currently, the only ones appointed by the governing body is the town manager, and then categories we didn't list at all here, town attorney, board of assessment review, planning board. Do you need the boards or just the like paid employees that are appointed by us on?
Just yeah.
So it just say the only ones we actually appoint are the town manager and
Town
the
attorney.
town attorneys.
Right.
And all those other titles, the town clerk, the treasurer, the tax collector, the assessor, and the department heads are all appointed by the town manager with the appointments confirmed by the town council.
Yeah.
So I can
Do y'all confirm department heads as well?
do,
Then I would put it in there.
I can get you that language. That's, okay, I'm good. Anything else on the job description?
So you're gonna add your language to that.
I was gonna do two things. I was gonna fix that language for Alyssa and add in the sentence, about that, in the other section about appointment of town assessor and town clerk are confirmed by the town council.
But you're saying it's the directors too, not just those two?
It is, it's also the
Because,
directors.
yeah, because
it's
the job
all-
description right now just says town assessor and town clerk have to be confirmed. But if it's,
Those are the only ones you asked about, so
Okay.
that's the ones
so
I.
I would
you
say
want them all-
anything that has to be confirmed by council, we want to make sure that's in there.
Okay.
Because that's a whole nother layer of.
Yeah.
Can be sometimes a challenge.
Hasn't been here. We've
That's
been Very good about that.
That's awesome.
And it's in our charter, so it's
Okay.
not an easy change. I'll get you the full list of who has to be confirmed by council.
Okay.
It's in one tiny section of the charter, so I can
Perfect.
just send you the link there and you have it all.
Okay. perfect.
1.1.3A.
Does that actually say that the department heads are confirmed or they confirm the salary?
No, it actually reads, the town manager shall appoint the town clerk, the treasurer, tax collector, town assessor, and department heads, subject to the confirmation of the town council for all of them, and shall have the power to remove such appointees when necessary. The town manager shall appoint and remove when necessary all other administrative officers and town employees. Good. All right. Any more job description?
I really like the stuff we did together on the community. What makes one special. Did a good job.
In the profile.
Yeah,
I know.
it's awesome.
It's fun to write this stuff together about what makes Orono special and the job description about who we really want to hire and
Yeah.
what we're just, it's very exciting. And it's exciting to base it off all this community input that came in. Okay. Lisa, do you have any other questions on the profile document? This is really here for you. If there's
Yeah.
something I've missed that you need
No,
us to talk about.
No, so every once in a while, once I give it to our tech writing team, sometimes they'll come back with a question. If they have one, then I will shoot you guys an email, but no. Not at this time.
Feel free to add more after you get a chance to visit the town tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Other things make Orono awesome.
Okay, then I think we're on to H, which is about job listings and where we want to list the job. There is a file in the drive or attached to my email, which is called
I
Ad
just-
Placement Options. Yeah, go ahead.
That you were still doing profile.
Yes, profile.
Rob had an amendment for, it was in the history, wasn't it?
Did that get made in the history?
Time in the morning.
Can you
I
open it?
sent it to Manlito, CC'd
Right.
Jeff,
Cornell said it was gonna go somewhere to staff to update. Can you take a look at this updated profile and see if it's been made or not, Rob? Yeah, I don't think it is. I don't see the time immemorial, which was in the first paragraph.
Maybe Rob can just change that
I could
language.
just send it down to someone.
I don't think we can edit this can we edit this document on here, all of us? We all have ability? Okay, great, then edit away. Good. All right, so you'll fix that first paragraph. Good catch, Cornell. Anything else on the profile? Okay, on to job listings then, and where we want to list the job. And that file in the drive should be alphabetically your top one, Leo, add placement options, if your alphabetical list. Melissa, do you want to say anything about this?
So I would just say, as I put in there, ad placements are a pass-through cost. That's why we give you kind of the list and the options. You need to think about, where you want it. Originally, we had talked, you all wanted some diverse posting locations, and there's kind of been dialogue back and forth on that. So I kind of think that's probably the lion's share of what you need to discuss is, do you want to stick with local government postings? Do you want to consider straight, private sector kind of executive recruitment type sites and or higher ed? It doesn't hurt to post those places. There is a cost obviously associated with it. So anyway, you guys need to decide.
Added cost for added
Just
added sites, any of them that don't have
Right.
zero next to their name.
I would say this,
Okay.
I would be hesitant to sub out some of those for local government sites. In other words, you want to make sure you have those well covered.
Yeah.
So I would see those as an additional cost, and do you all want to do that or not?
So it's a balance about additional costs versus how wide a net do we want to cast to
Right.
see who we might.
And part of that is, I know there's been, and if you looked at the job description, I think it says municipal or similar type organization reporting to a governing body, et cetera. You don't want to mislead and post it somewhere where you're not willing to consider those applicants
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Well, I have just one quick question about this, is that listening to our discussion with the job description and profile, I'm not sure how much bang we get for our buck, Chronicle of Higher Ed. I've been on their job site and they have a section of jobs outside academia, but those tend to be research and staff jobs. So I'm not sure many people are looking at Chronicle of Higher Ed for a town manager job. I'd throw that out there. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a great source and I'm not sure. And I also remember reading on one of the municipal listservs, it wasn't through MMA, that federal government is working for a post-military retirement job placement transition service, which is free for veterans, may also be free for us. And I don't know, maybe if somebody who's dying to come back to Maine, who has great administrative experience and federal government. Maybe that would be a place to look, but I don't know the name of that.
Okay.
particular
Yeah, just research.
Maybe.
I love that idea. I don't know about Chronicle of Higher Ed specifically. Higher ed jobs, I'm more familiar with. I've looked for jobs there quite a bit, and I actually think that now might be a fine time to be advertising for higher ed because there are a number of colleges and universities that are facing budget challenges, and it could be that there are some really amazing administrators who are familiar with that setting and are open to other places their skills could be useful. So I think it would be worth like choosing one of the higher ed places and advertising there maybe. And I'm curious, Lisa, if you have any insight into
I
where.
don't necessarily
Yeah.
have, just because that's not our, general area of expertise, so I would kind of defer to you
Yeah.
who have utilized some of those
Well-
websites personally to.
Maybe higher ed jobs then, because it's a little bit cheaper and we're at least casting a net into a place that I know a lot of academic administrative types look for things.
I don't know that, do you think an academic administrator, I do feel is gonna be quite different than than the type of administrator we're looking for. Only that, the big difference, I think, is that they're gonna report to a council.
Mhm.
And I think most academic administrators, I don't know who they report to.
Well, I think it depends. If it's somebody who is the president of a community college that is shutting down, then they would be reporting to a board of directors presumably. And so I think there could be great candidates who, again, it may not be the most likely pathway, but I personally think that in a college town, it could be a really interesting possibility to have someone with that kind of crossover administrative experience. So.
I think they might also report to the statewide system.
Yeah.
It also means reporting to it depends on your job at the university. Some folks report to the state system and that has its own board. And so, I don't know, I'm with Sonia. I guess I would be for just doing one of them because I do think it's a leap, but it's not necessarily more of a leap than moving up from a department head to becoming, I mean, it's a different kind of a leap. Certainly there are some academic jobs I think would not be any qualifications we would need,
totally.
but there are other administrative jobs that I think would have a lot. I don't know, I'm gonna cede to other people's opinion, but I guess I'm with Sonia and I'd pick one and put it out there just in case. What do other folks feel?
I'm noticing that MMA is on this list. We are a member, so that's free for us. It's a no-brainer. I think it would also be worth, the fees are pretty low, advertising in Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. Those municipal organizations, do others agree?
Rhode Island's free.
Woo-hoo.
Seems
Oh, no, wait, it says fee being added soon. Does that mean you just
Yeah.
don't know the fee
Yeah.
yet?
Well, they haven't had one, but they're in the process
Okay,
of,
so like
so we
advertise
always
your
call,
fee.
believe it or not, every time we do a search, we call to make sure that the fees are the same, and this time we got, well,
Mhm.
it is at the minute, but we're working on adding a fee, so.
Don't slow their roll.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, all the ones that are listed as free in here, like, absolutely, sure. I don't need to know what exec threads is to think, let's advertise there.
Lisa, do you want to say anything about, I don't know what the ladders or exec appointments or executives on the web, do you want to say anything about? those
Yeah, so
sites?
we added those because we had talked about you all wanting to take a look at people, outside of the municipal government. Same thing, if you want to do that, I would look at the lower cost or, options there. Focus your money on the municipal sites from a
Mhm.
dollars perspective probably, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to include one of those depending,
And then, there are some that are free in Florida and Kansas and Tennessee, so great, they're
That's
free.
why those are included because they're free.
Great, great.
Free.
So we like free. Then it seems like ones that have a cost that we haven't talked about, we're talking about maybe picking the lowest one on the exec one is what we talked about.
Executives on the web.
I feel like the cost differential between the two higher ed ones is very small, and I would prefer to talk to someone, a couple of folks maybe at the university about which one is read more and just pick based on what people think is read more rather than the $40 difference in cost or 60, what is it there? Does anyone care strongly about that?
If you want to take the time to come back with an idea, I definitely support you.
I have a lot of family there, so
Yeah.
I could probably, and I mean, Sonia does too, so we could probably come back if there was a strong opinion, and if not, we would just go with the cheaper one.
Okay.
Does that seem fine? And the other ones here we haven't talked about then that have a cost look to be National Forum for Black Public Administrators, Local Government, Hispanic Network. What else do folks see that we
Is
have?
ICMA the international?
Yes,
That
and I
one
would
I
definitely
do.
recommend.
Yeah,
you
let's do
post
that
it.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that one.
The central one,
CMA is which one? What are they?
International.
City Managers Association,
Um,
City Town Manager.
Town and city manager jobs, what is is that a place that lots of people look in your experience?
I would say a fair amount. I mean,
Yeah.
ICMA is probably more broad scope, but,
Yeah.
you know, you don't have to use it. You know, if you told me you weren't gonna use ICMA, I'd probably be like, oh, you
Yeah.
definitely want to,
A second,
but
I need
Yeah.
to hear this answer. Go ahead.
Sorry.
It's okay, it was good. It was
it's not a
exciting.
must have.
Can you say it again? Because we didn't hear it on our
I
end.
was
Sorry.
being disrupted.
She said to a lot of people use town and city manager jobs. I said, yeah, it's pretty well read, but not as important as an ICMA. So if you wanted to not include it, you could.
At $1.25, it's probably worth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have an expectation with our contract or our process in terms of identifying candidates from underrepresented communities or anything like that? Is it-
Yeah, so the way we approach that is we work really, really hard to make sure that the position gets in front of a diverse audience as possible, which is why we do have some of the partnerships we have with NFEPA, local government Hispanic network, et cetera.
Yep.
And then our goal is so that everybody who would have interest in the opportunity who has an opportunity to apply, right? And then from there, it's really you guys deciding who you feel like
Yeah.
is the best candidates. We talked a little bit about some of those equity, opportunities as it relates to candidate numbers, et cetera, but we don't put any guarantees around that
Yeah.
because we can't control,
Yeah.
anyway, but we are passionate about it, just so you know, and if you look historically, I would say the challenge is that some roles historically are less diverse, right? And then also geographically, your diversity will play into that as well. But we've been successful with attracting candidates from all kinds of different backgrounds and communities, so
Do you screen just intuitively? Do you screen our materials to make sure that there isn't something, some kind of bias that
Yes.
dissuade people?
yeah, absolutely. We'll make sure that there's nothing, I mean, that's part of what we do anyway for all postings, but yeah, we would do the same, I mean, you as the community, we can't control if there's already a feeling of that. Does that make sense? Like, in other words, if there's something out there that makes people feel that way, but we'll work to overcome it when we talk to people. And like I said, the more places you post like that too, it kind of sends a message that you wanna make sure that you're evaluating all applicants.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
That was helpful.
that's super helpful.
Have we talked about National League of Cities? What is that? That one's on here for 400. I don't know what National League of Cities is.
So it is a professional organization that cities is, so ICMA is more like a personal, each individual, right, has their ICMA membership, whereas National League of Cities is a little more related to cities, but it's similar. I mean, you don't have to use every single one of them. But I would say I would choose probably at least 2 or 3 of those to include,
Of which?
of kind of the nationwide city county manager type association.
FIGMA is a given. I mean, that's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
So what are the other ones that we're looking at? Town and city manager jobs, National League of Cities, and what?
I'll have it pulled up, so I'll pull it back up.
I'm comfortable with all those.
I agree.
All of which, those two, you mean? You don't mean like
I mean-
the ladders and executive thread?
No,
executive
I
one?
meant the ones at the top.
Yeah.
ICMA, town and city manager job, and National League of Cities, those 3.
Perfect.
That's kind of our target.
That's your primary target.
Okay.
Did we talk like the New Hampshire Municipal Association?
Yeah.
We talked about those. Y'all wanna do those ones?
Okay, so we're saying down to Rhode Island. If everybody looks at this list and we get down to Rhode Island League of Cities and Towns, which is free. We think still. Everybody's good with that first half, all the way down to there. We want to list it, all of those.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how do we feel about Connecticut, which is 300? Are we willing to skip Connecticut for 300 bucks? I feel like I'm playing Jeopardy now or 300 and this for.
It's New England. I did ask for New England. But it does feel a little bit further, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What's that?
Okay. How are other people feeling? Are we wanting yes to Connecticut and we're good all the way down through Tennessee, which is free then, or are we?
Shrug.
I'd say yes.
Okay, all right. So then we're gonna pick one of either higher ed or Chronicles of Higher Education, just one of those.
Great.
And
And
then,
can we authorize Sarah to just pick one based on what she learned talking to some university folks?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
okay,
okay,
I'll communicate to Alyssa.
great.
And then we've got now this other section, which is the ladders, exec thread, exec appointments, and exec on the webs. Exec thread is free, so that seems like a given. So the only question remaining is the ladders, exec appointments, and executives on the web, those three. Do we have a recommendation of one of those to use if we're?
This question about banker funds.
Yeah,
Because
Yeah,
look at
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Feel strongly that these are where I want to go, but.
We added them only because there was a request for some things outside of local government, so we don't have strong feelings on them either. So
Yeah.
it's up to you.
I feel like, I'd be okay without them. Personally, I think. I only checked out ladders and that was like
Yeah.
underwhelming.
Intuitive.
But I don't know how many other people would.
Opinion on this. Anyone want them? Anyone at the table wanting one of these?
No, you said exec threads
like-
is free.
Yeah,
Dan?
I'd like to do one. I like the idea of someone.
Yeah.
Doing that.
I think maybe how about executives on the web, which I've just pulled up and seen not horribly unintuitive and is the cheapest one of these. That's the paid option.
All right. That's the executives on the web for $2.90.
Executives on the web for $2.90.
I do feel like I'm running Jeopardy now. Okay. All right. Is that the end of our discussion on this list then? Yes, I have one piece of information to get you and everything
Yes,
else.
I got
is
it
clear?
right here. I underlined
Okay.
it.
Did you
Okay,
include mass?
yes.
Yes.
We had New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Well, those are free. Florida's free.
But like, will Indeed and stuff pick this up from other places or?
We hope not, but
Yeah,
they do job scraping sometimes. Anyway,
yeah,
so it's possible, yes.
Yeah.
no, it's not.
I was, sorry, I just looked up the executives on the web and looked at the account manager and what came up was like account manager in Southport and it's in towns. So weird, I don't know.
Yeah, we
why
may be a
it doesn't
misfit
have
for
to
that.
be US. Is there something with that?
We haven't seen who pulls us, so I did not.
Yeah, if it's UK based, then. maybe
Surely not. That would be terrible.
Maybe that's in pounds the price too. Which that would be bad.
I don't think so. I wonder if there's like a US and a.
Here.
Let me take a few minutes and I'll check it out before we decide.
United States may have no government.
Okay, well, I think
that's
they're
what
international.
I think there we go. Yeah.
Oh, good catch.
Yeah, thank you for catching that.
I personally don't want
Yeah.
to pay $5.60 or.
Yeah, that seems a lot.
The other ones, I don't
Yeah.
think it's.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
worth it. And for not what we were looking for.
No,
And we're on
Perfect.
exec thread anyway.
thanks for looking up details on things.
So you know that, Dan?
But
I'll put it on my LinkedIn account.
I'm putting a note on here.
Okay,
Got a
So-
perfect reach.
we can live with that. Okay, all right, so none of those bottom ones then. We
Yep.
have eliminated from the ladders on down.
cool.
Okay, we did that. All right, I think we're on to I, which is survey data.
I think not from the ladders on down because we want exec threads, which is free.
Oh, right.
I put all free though.
Put all the free ones.
Yeah, I
okay,
mean,
great.
it's not
We
gonna
were
hurt
doing
you.
all the free
Yeah,
ones.
Great,
I did. I got
perfect.
the free.
Okay.
Good catch then.
It's still-
That's not on here.
Wait a minute.
It's still free though, right?
Sorry.
It's kind of, try and be comprehensive.
Uncle Henry's.
Yeah. Bible.
Lived my Uncle Henry when we were kids, didn't
Yeah.
you?
Yeah.
Okay. We're good. Okay, so survey data. So Sonia has a one-pager version now also, and a
Yeah.
really nice version that I didn't find too long at all, that was only
Just sent it to you.
like 3 pages. Right, so, or maybe not even, how long was this one, Sonia, that you created?
It was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 pages.
Yeah, but you had it kind of highlighted at the
Right, it
It
top.
was like
but-
1 page of
Right.
kind of like words, information,
Right.
and then a couple pages of supplementary, more data. This 1 pager is a lot of the same information, but with an additional figure to make it a little bit more visual and all on 1 page.
So I think, other folks may have other questions, but my question to you is, in addition to having them printed for the public meeting tomorrow night, and I know there'll be some discussion about it at the end about
Yeah.
what the survey results were. I was also hoping that we would have it linked on our website, where there's the part of the website that's about the town manager search, and maybe even at the banner, like see the survey results, go here. Which would you want linked, Sonia, the shorter 1 pager or the longer? Which do you think would be better there, or do you want both? Just so people have access to both.
Both is fine with me. I don't have a strong preference. I think the 1 pager would be the one to highlight, and then for anyone who wanted more information, we could link the longer one too.
So once it's linked on this website, then we can social it out, because I've already been asked by people.
Yeah,
So, I mean, not just we can, I think what's important is to request to staff, that we want it linked to the orange banner at the top, and we want it pushed out on all our social media.
I don't think we need to like
Right.
put it out on the tech stuff. I think we're good.
No.
Okay,
What did you say?
like the text stuff that we've been, the texts, sorry, that we've been
mean
getting.
that.
Okay,
I meant,
all
we
right.
have a Facebook
Yeah.
page
Yeah,
as a
Facebook's
town,
great. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Those sorts of social media accounts that we maintain, it would be nice to get it up on all of those. So Sonia, can you work with Cornell and staff about getting all that up?
yeah,
My biggest thing is
Um,
just to make sure you get what you want, and I would like it if it was a banner at the top, because folks have sort of gotten used to it at this point. There was the banner for the survey, and now the banner for the search launch tomorrow, and if after tomorrow, if this banner became, here's the results of the survey, I think that would be nice, but.
Yeah.
that's-
I mean, yeah, so just to highlight, one question that I had for you all is I did, in this draft 1 pager, I put written on behalf of the town council, and I put the town of Orono logo, and so I wanted to run that by you all before printing a bunch of copies and handing it out like an official looking document, like, let me know if you'd prefer that I just personally as a sole individual take credit for this, or whether you want it to be more of a town council publication.
This is all the same info that.
This is all the same information.
It's exactly the same.
And I'll
text.
like double check it tomorrow and make sure I didn't make a typo in this. I made it pretty quickly this afternoon, but
Could you put any reason to not put that town of Warren thing at the top, out of curiosity? Is it just a look?
I think it was just, yeah, I think no particular reason. We could put it at the top if you think that would be better. Like,
I think it looked
right up
more
here or
official, maybe,
something?
I don't know,
sure.
but I think it's fine for it to be
Yeah.
official town document first, but.
Yep. I just wanted to get all of your go ahead before sending it to Cornell as an official town document.
I
I don't think
appreciate
you
your.
introduced any bias.
Why, thank you. I've tried to report the facts quite professionally.
Just-
And I also just appreciate the work that you've done on it, and this is all data that you've already sent to us and we've already reviewed before, and we've had access to every
Yeah.
single response, and we've been able to go back and read it ourselves, and you've done an excellent job in a very objective way, reflecting what came back on the survey. This is your scientific training, and we're very grateful for it. Thank you. Anyone else have any feedback for Sonia on this?
There's somewhere in either our manual or somewhere about, it might be the internal control stuff that I had to read for all that internal control stuff we did about the logo. And I've read that before and I thought, "Oof, I come close to,
In terms of how
Are we
to,
allowed to use it?
yeah.
Really?
It's just something about counselors, aren't, you gotta be careful about, I mean, you've asked us this and I totally support you using it.
Yep.
But I would just, I've seen it before and it's given me like a cautious, like sometimes I'll put together something to promote the potluck or something and I throw the logo in it and it feels entirely appropriate. But a close reading of the rule.
what do you think, Leo? Is that more your speed in terms of logo placement?
Yeah.
Okay,
So
But-
Dan, I haven't read that in a bit, but as I remember, I thought that was targeting individual counselors should not be using it like on their own publicity and their,
Yeah.
you know, their own
Yeah.
documents. I mean, I think it's different when we've had a council conversation about it and the whole council has said, community potlucks, we've all voted, we want them to happen.
Yeah.
They are a council program. This is a report that we asked Sonia to make based on the survey results, and we've all reviewed it and said it's an accurate report. So I read
agree.
that to be
Yeah.
two different categories, but if we want to look at that language again, we could bring it at another meeting
Yeah,
to
some other
review.
time, yeah, just.
If you want, unless Cornell has it right like that, I don't. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for bringing it up.
No, yeah, I love the fact sheet.
Good. I think, Melissa, anything else from you? Did we actually get through all 9 items?
We did.
Great.
Job. So we'll, like I said, I already sent the job description over to our team, so should be positioned to get that to you guys early next week for review before 7. So
And so that may mean our meeting on the 7th may be efficient and short. We may simply have a brochure to review. At the moment, I don't have anything else, but if other folks are thinking of things that need to come to search committee a week from today, send them my way.
This would be a good meeting to link for candidates in terms of collegiality and efficiency when it comes to what to like working with this
we pick
council.
and choose, right?
Oh,
Which
yeah.
one? Please look at
Over the last
these, and not these.
It's a serious
Not that we
blowout.
had a bad hair
If
day
only it
either.
worked that way.
Right. Good. All right, I'm done with my
Good.
part, Jeff. Thank you.
Okay, so we should
Thank
have.
you. I do want to say thank you. Sarah
Oh,
has really
gosh.
been
Yeah.
carrying the brunt of this for the last, and then, of course, we had the schedule issue, so she's been phenomenal. at
Yes.
Dealing with all that, so thank you to Sarah.
It's been amazing having a ad hoc. People step up to do it, and I think important to do it. Before we leave this discussion item or this agenda item, we should ask for public comment. So Pete, if there's anybody with public comment online, or we have anybody, yes, please.
Clarifying question about relocation assistance. Is that applicable to wherever a candidate may find immediate housing, not necessarily in Orono? And would that apply again if they further down the line within a couple of months find housing in Orono, or is that just a one-time?
I can
That's a
speak
great
from
question.
historically
Thanks,
other
Lauren.
places. It would be their decision, but sometimes we do see it both. If there happens to be, you know, they are coming from far away, they can't find permanent housing, they need temporary housing and then permanent housing, and there's an actual move, right? Where you provide relocation assistance. So I think it would be at their discretion, but historically from other communities, every once in a while, where there's a housing challenge, sometimes we'll see it twice once for temporary and then once for permanent.
Mhm.
But it would be up to them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anybody online, Pete?
No hands raised at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So-
And I guess, like, I don't know if any of us want to speak to that question as well. I think my take would be that that would be something to negotiate with them. And that I wouldn't immediately say that we would definitely do both, but I think it's something I'd consider as part of a bigger negotiation
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
All right. The only town council chair report items that I have are we have received 2 mini grant applications since our last meeting. I've been in contact with the applicant for one of those to clarify some language. So hopefully Sheena will be able to connect really soon to talk about that. And when we get some free space in our schedule in the near future, we'll take up one or both of those mini grant.
It looks like that second one might need some clarification too. It wasn't clear what the ask was. on that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it did too.
That
We
would
can run over the limit one.
I think so.
So,
You can Go to the kickoff event, they'll have it.
so we could talk to both of us. I'm just telling you, I've only spoken to one of the applicants so far, but I'll make contact with all of them before we come.
And has the email gone out to Launchpad?
No.
I drafted it. Remember you and I were gonna
Yes.
do that together. I drafted it.
That did,
sent
that
it to you.
email.
Did that go?
Yes, that
Okay.
email did go out.
So
Yes,
we
I'm
did
sorry.
follow up on the Launchpad where we had some questions about their wheat paste mural,
Oh.
a very cool thing, but we
Great.
had some questions. So that email asking for clarification has gone. out.
Yes, that. has
Great.
gone.
And the next meeting when we might look at these things or have time to do it would would probably be a week from today, February 5th.
It may be.
Right.
Right, it's gonna
Because we
depend on
pulled people,
communication.
right. At least for Launchpad, if they got back, I would hope we would do theirs sooner rather than later because their application happened, originally back in January.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once they get back. I
Right.
mean,
Once they get back to us, I'd just like to get it on the agenda. That's all I'm
Yeah,
asking.
that's- Yeah, there's no delay.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other two are still
Yeah.
not clear. So.
Yeah, we're not stacking them up.
Thank you.
All right, so those were my only items. Cornell.
Just to be clear, the meeting on the seventh is now just search. And the special meeting is on the 21st.
The special meeting with the executive session would be on the 21st. We would pick the search advisory committee then. Yes.
Everybody's clear with that?
Everybody's, okay.
So we have a special meeting on the 21st.
Yeah.
That's new. Is that part of these Wednesday meetings?
It's part of the Wednesday meetings, but we need an executive session to choose the manager search advisory committee. And we can't have an executive session without turning it into a special council meeting instead of a council committee's meeting.
Okay.
That makes sense, Dan?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so one more opportunity for public comment.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question off the, I didn't know we adjourned from the manager's report. So I wanted to ask you, your weekly reports to us are excellent. And they make me smile. A lot of the stuff like the T-Rex, the 60 kids down at the library and dinosaur costumes just makes my weekend, like brightens my weekend as I go into it. You mentioned the DOT was gonna do something on February 28th, I think, on the corridor project. Will we get something on that before it starts go out to the public, or how will that work?
Yeah, I've asked, Rob, who's off Mondays, so I should get it tomorrow. Whether DOT has put any info out,
Okay,
and if not, do they put something out before the public hearing? So I'll get back.
is it a hearing or presentation? Do we know?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a presentation about
Yeah.
the scope of the project,
Okay,
and they're looking for feedback.
Right.
So,
February 28th.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
I think so-
clarify.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, you wanna go first?
No, this is a really big thing for me, and I'd like to make sure I get it, like personally get it out to people that are sensitive in that corridor. Yeah, I'd like to maybe.
Can I just ask, I was under the impression at the MMA conference, wandering around to booths, we talked to some of the DOT folks, and they were explaining that there's actually, I think what I understood is there's typically a series of these public meetings that will happen for input throughout a number of months. This isn't like a one time, is that correct? Do we know?
I think it's get information at this one, prepare more of the plans, have another one.
Okay.
Um,
So at each stage, some feedback comes in and the next stage of the plans happens. So this might really be the only time to have input at the very beginning of the planning, of the plans being created.
We try and find that info out from Rob, and
Yeah.
he'll be at the meeting on the 5th
Next week's meeting.
for public safety, so get you the information you want within the next week.
Okay, that's plenty of time, Matt, right?
Yeah, that works.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Town manager report adjourned.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you
Any
so much
last
for-
public comment? Waiting for the voice on hot.
No hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Pete. All right, so we have anything else before we adjourn?
Yes,
Yeah.
things that are coming up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So tomorrow night is the open community meeting to meet with Lissa and give her a hour and a half long masterclass and everything she needs to know about Orono to find us the very best candidates. So if anyone's watching on Facebook or later, please come, council chambers to Tuesday, tomorrow from 6 to 7:30 PM. 6 to 6:30 is more of a meet and greet, mill around style, and the facilitated part of the workshop will start from 6:30. There's a Zoom option. It's all on the town website. Also then Thursday night, Jeff, is candidates night.
That's fine.
Someone want to give details about candidates night?
Hybrid candidates night in person and online. And we'll be here. It will be moderated by David Chase, our able moderator, and come and meet the candidates, bring your questions.
Yeah, and these are folks who are running for town council and school board.
Yes. And finally,
Oh, finally, there's a potluck. It's community potluck. It'll be the first Sunday of February on Sunday. Community potluck at the Keith Anderson, 4:30 to 6:30, in partnership with the Orono Health Association, which are the wonderful people who run the thrift store. So come and learn more about that. If you're able to bring non-perishable food, please do, because they are launching for the first time an Orono food pantry right here in Orono. So non-perishable food, much appreciated, along with a potluck dish if you can bring one.
Great.
I think that's all the public service announcements.
That's everything. Okay, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Woohoo.